Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to. I think this would be the ninth Leaders Dojo, June, July, August, September. Yep, it's the ninth Leaders Dojo, and thank you, James, and thank you, Alicia, for being here. Wow, uh, on time, waiting. So, thank you very much for your great support. Thank you, James, for calling me Lang Zai. I'm very glad to have my hair cut. It's such a relief. So tonight we have a really very knowledgeable, very passionate guest. Right, we were just having a conversation just now, just before the show, and there's just so much we agree on in terms of leadership, and what it means to develop new leaders. Hi, Michelle. Good evening. High school graduate. Oh my gosh, Form 5. James, I know you went for dinner that day lah. Okay lah, I take you up lah. All right. So before I get ahead of myself, let me just introduce myself and the show properly. So my name is Chee-Seng, and if I haven't, if you don't know me that well yet, I'm a writer and I'm content writing trainer, and I'm also a thought leaders coach. Right, and as a writer and trainer, I've been doing. I've been a writer for almost 25 years, and recently went to content writing training and as a thought leaders coach. And having gone into training, I realized a few things, especially after reflecting back on um, my past 25 years as a teacher as well, right? So that really brought a few things into my mind about leadership, and that's why this Leaders Dojo show is about. And in fact, I joined my friends to form a training outfit called the Communications Leadership Academy, because we also share a vision, right? I come from the communications background. Shen Feng comes from the digital marketing and branding background. Andy comes from the strategic communications and PR background. And Cafe comes from culture, leadership, and communications, interpersonal communications background. So why we saw this need to come together is because we realized that today leadership, communication, and branding actually needs to be an integrated whole, right? You can't just do communications and branding and leadership training. uh, you can do it as specialized courses, but we realized that for companies to be really successful, all these things need to be integrated, right? There needs to be a very agile form of thinking where the leader leads the culture of the company, and the culture expresses itself in the branding out there in the market and the communication in the market, right? And that's what makes companies compelling these days, right? It's and as we were talking about with our guest, as I was talking about with our guest just now, today is about purpose, right? And that's where the integration of this needs to come in. Okay, and that's also why I started this show, because of my experience in teaching for the past 25 years, and also in serving corporate clients in the past 25 years as a content writer. I get to see both sides, what is happening in the corporate world, and who are the new people coming up into the corporate world and into the business world, right? The children that I've been teaching for over 20 years. And that has raised quite a number of questions about leadership uh, that we need in the new world today. All right. And no one better to speak on this topic than our guest today, who is Ms. Vimala Suppiah, award-winning global executive leadership coach, mentor coach, speaker, author, and futurist. Right, Vimala is a global ICF certified executive leadership coach and founder of Game Change Coaching Consultancy, and she helps clients gain greater self-awareness and clarity on their leadership performance gaps. And I think uh, we were speaking about this also before the show. So she partners with individuals and teams to unleash their potential to achieve extraordinary results in their organization. Right. So before we go on, let me just bring Vimala online, and please help me to welcome our very special guest tonight. Hi, Vimala.
Hi, Chee-Seng. So nice
Uh,
to see you.
Thank you. Thank
You
you
can
for being
hear
here.
me, right?
Yes, yes, perfectly. All right. Just let me say hi to a few more people. Isha, spicy topic, definitely very necessary. If can, please do send the video around to anyone that you know who might need to hear this. Hi, Jimin, KZ. Hi, Wenjay. Thank you for being here. All right. So this is a show where it's not really a sort of like an interview show, right? We want to have a conversation. Okay, so if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please do feel free to drop it into the comment box, and we will definitely be coming to your questions and comments. Right, we will definitely respond. Right, so do join the conversation. It's a bit like Clubhouse, but a little bit more casual than Clubhouse, not so structured. We want everybody to be in the conversation and discussing this together. Hi, Husni. Good evening. Okay, so Vimala, maybe can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and and you did mention that you started out your career as a nurse. So how did you? It'd be interesting to know how you transitioned from that to coaching and reaching international heights.
Thank you, Chee-Seng. Well, it's a journey. It's been a journey. I was born a long time ago, when Malaysia and KL was really not what it is today. So I was born in Sentul, and grew up as one of the daughters of five girls in the family. I was the second in the family. My father worked for Malayan Railway, and he came as an indentured laborer
Mm,
from India, South India. So he didn't speak English. He didn't. He yeah, even Bahasa he couldn't speak. Anyway, he was an amazing man. He sent us all to school. He knew he was a like a community leader. So that's a time when
mm,
Malaysia got its independence, and the Tamil community, while they had their connections in India, were working in railways and estates. But Tan Sri Tun Samandan, who was the minister then, together with all these people, they really felt that education is what's going to bring the Tamil community
mm,
out of poverty. So they were very keen to send all their children, and my father worked very hard to make sure that that was, on the agenda. So he sent all of us to school. Um, and when I finished my Form 5, I wanted to go to London because my friends were going to London and becoming nurses. And so I said this to my father, and he said, "Are you crazy or what? Where am I going to find the money? We are not rich." Anyway, he went to Tun Samandan and the National Land Finance Cooperative Society. My father had bought shares, and they gave me a plane ticket to go to
wow.
London. So that is how it happened. So I went to London, became a nurse 3 years, became a staff nurse, came back to tell my father that I wasn't coming back to Malaysia. I wanted to stay in London, and broke his heart.
Mm,
Um, Wanted to stay because that's where I saw my future. So I became a staff nurse and climbed up the career ladder of in nursing. So I became a nurse manager, managed a multidisciplinary team. So I kind of went along that until I went to college, I went to university, and I became more aware of issues around social issues.
mm,
I did social science. And that's when my consciousness about what was happening to communities, Black and ethnic minority communities who are living. So race relations became an issue in
mm,
UK. Anyway, I saw this post. This is in the early 90s. I saw this job being advertised, equal opportunities manager. So I applied and I got the job. and this was in the East End of London. So I left nursing management and I moved into the general management of the National Health Service. So all this was taking, at that time when I got that job, it was actually, my role was to bring about a strategy. There wasn't anybody to induct me into the role. I had a very, really wonderful steering group, but my role was to bring about a strategy for equal access to services and to improve the employment practices.
So basically,
And
you
that
had a
was,
free hand to decide.
I did, you know, and this was government led. This initiative to appoint people like me was government led. So there were many of us. So we got together as well. But there was a lot of support for us to make change happen.
Hmm.
And this is where I learned. It was just an amazing, amazing role. And I learned so much about how to bring about change, how to
Hmm.
influence,
Right.
and
Right.
how to get there, how
Being
to
in a
get there.
leadership position. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was so by this time 30 years had gone past. Although I was coming and going, coming to visit my family and going back. So after 30 years, I had a moment and felt that I needed to come back home. But this time, both my parents had passed away. I have sisters. So I came home in 97 thinking that I was going to do training or consultancy, all that kind of stuff. But what I realized is that I didn't have a network. There was absolutely nobody I
Hmm.
knew in the corporate world. So I went and taught in a kindergarten,
Hmm.
looked at the kindergarten's business.
Wow. That's like a huge difference.
I know. It's just that when I came back to KL, I was actually in Seremban, and I bought a I bought a house in the Taman, and went to teach in a kindergarten and looked at. I loved teaching. I loved being with kids, and realized that I could probably run a kindergarten
Hmm.
myself. So I said this to my sister, and she said, "Okay, okay, can do, and we'll help you." So I got a place, a corner house. I rented it, and it's in Seremban Selatan. And I went and did some programs, some courses, some certificates about early childhood education, how to run a business, and all of that. And I set up my kindergarten.
Hmm.
On the first year, I had about 20 children
Hmm.
because people were beginning to move in. On the
Yep.
second year, my teacher who'd opened the door for registration, she called me and she said, "You better come here quick because there's a huge queue outside and I can't do it myself." And on the second year, I had 72 kids.
Wow.
So, and this is what I did for 10 years. And during the end of the 10 years, I began to realize I missed my corporate
Hmm.
connections and corporate
Hmm.
role. And I was coming and going to KL, coming to KL and realized that this is where I needed to be. So I sold
Hmm.
the business. Came to KL. But while I was teaching, running the kindergarten, I kept reading Michael here, who has the Corporate Coach Academy. I was
Hmm.
reading his articles. So I came over to KL one weekend and did the weekend foundation. So
Hmm.
when I came back to KL, I took up coaching, and that was in 2011. And in 2011, I became a certified coach.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
that's what I do.
That's 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 quite a journey, man. That's and I mean I always appreciate people who don't have linear career tracks, right? Because you actually learn so
Yes,
much. You pick up
that's
a
right.
lot of different skills.
I'm the original millennial. We say millennials are forever moving around.
Yeah, yeah.
I, I, I am the original.
I like you said that the original millennial. Okay, maybe tell us a little bit about your coaching career. What do you do now?
Okay. So again, God is always with me. I am always, so fortunate. So I'd finished my coaching and I was doing pro bono work, and I got a call from an MD of Kelly Services, the MD of Kelly Services, ex-MD,
Hmm.
who said to me, "Come and talk to us. We need a coach." So I went and spoke to her and the people development person, HR, and they said that they have branch managers throughout Malaysia. Can I coach them?
Hmm.
And I had 8 of them to coach. So, and what was happening in the conversation with them is that I was sharing my corporate role, my strategic role, my thinking, and how I did what I did,
Hmm.
and how I could do this when I go into a coaching space. And that's what kind of convinced them to ask me to coach
Hmm.
their senior leaders.
Hmm.
So I gave a 6-month proposal because I realized that this is not something that I can do, sort of 6 sessions and that's it.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave a 6-month proposal, saying that it's what you want. What you want is really for your senior leaders to have executive alignment, aligned to the, because Kelly itself, APEC Kelly itself was changing, moving
Hmm.
around, moving and restructuring to fit in with what was happening,
Right.
because there were boutique companies also coming into
That's right. That's
the
right.
market. Yes. So
And I
I
think
kind of,
that time recruitment websites were really hot on already.
yes.
Yeah, like Job Street was really
That's
established.
right.
Mm.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So that's what I did. So I, for 6 months, I did that. And then because I was also partly consulting for them about their bigger systemic changes that they wanted. But
Mm.
the MD was visionary enough, and I still
Mm.
say this, Melissa Norman, she was visionary enough to realize that she needed to develop the next talent pipeline.
Mm.
So these are the millennials.
Mm.
So I had, I think, 18 or 21 of them. Yeah, 21 of them. And I coached, so they appointed an L&D manager, and I
Mm.
worked with them, and the HR, I worked with her HR. And so that took me 2.5 years. For 2.5 years, I didn't have any other client. I
Mm.
just had, so basically what I do is, this is what I do. I go
Yeah.
in and work within the whole system
Yeah.
to align the leaders, to develop them.
Right. And that's basically what we are going to talk about tonight, right? Are
Yes,
we failing millennials? You mentioned
yes.
that Kelly had invested in actually bringing up their next level of leadership. Millennials. But do you see this as happening across the board? In terms of corporations or even SMEs in Malaysia or wherever else that you're working.
In Malaysia, it's a mixed bag.
Mm.
I think, and this was about going back about 8 years ago, 7 years ago. This is when I became aware of millennials, because
Mm.
I was kind of doing what I was doing, and of
Mm.
course I was going to be coaching these young people as well. But there
Yeah.
was a lot of talk going on in LinkedIn about how there was a lot of really bashing of young people, because at that time is when the graduates were coming into workplace, being
Yeah.
recruited, and they were being, and the talk was just so toxic,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know
Any millennials out there? Do you have a response to millennial bashing? Just put it into the comment box. Let's see what you have to say. Okay, please continue, Vimala.
I was really appalled. I just thought to myself, they're talking about my nieces and nephews. I don't have children, but they're
Mm.
talking about my nieces and nephews who are really nice people. And I thought to myself, so I went and started looking at this whole thing about millennials. And I realized that yes, they are really disrupting. They're putting a mirror to us to say to us that, hey, listen, this is not how it's going to be. And that's when it then changed, from all that bashing to, oh my God, we really have to develop these people because they are our future. And so there is a lot of development going on for young people in the banking sector, in the IT sector, multinationals, but there's a gap. They are being developed to be future ready, but not to be making an impact at workplace. So they come back after going through whatever they're going through. If it's a functional role, then they're okay. If they're working in accounts or that's a training they've received, that's fine. But if they have to think in terms of leading a project team or a small group of people, that's where the dots weren't being connected. And
Would you
that's
say this
where
is because people are talking about the generation gap? Would you say this is a generation gap or a skills gap, or what
it's
kind
a
of gap?
generation gap from the Gen X's and the baby boomers. It's a
Oh, my
gap.
generation.
It's a blind spot. It's a blind spot. I call it a blind spot. I used to write about the blind spot that we have. We kind of send them off because we had the money. We send them off for training. We tick the box, but we didn't think of what is it that they could contribute in
Right.
order to develop our groups or projects or company. We didn't kind of connect those dots. So then what happened is that millennials were leaving. There was a lot of revolving door. This revolving door thing happened.
But then they'll be judged, right? It's like millennials have no loyalty, right? Millennials.
That happened as well. That
Any
happened
comments?
as well. That happened as well. And that's when the C-suites and HR woke up and started talking about retention and what is it that we need to do to retain these people, these people who are talented. And that's when it's kind of beginning to so the beginning of the 21st century was all about retention, how we recruit. It was all about that.
Yeah. And I think that's
Yeah,
so interesting because in my dad's time,
yeah,
a good salary was enough to retain you.
yeah,
Right? People will put up
yeah,
with
yeah.
every kind of toxicity.
Yes,
They'll
yes,
take it.
yes,
When it came to my generation, the Gen Xers, I guess it's 50-50.
yes,
We can take a lot of toxicity, but up to a certain point, we don't. But I
yes.
think for the millennials, I think that choice has become much easier to make.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Right.
right. That's right. Yeah. And they are also much more talented. And then, of course,
Mm,
technology kicked in.
mm,
Technology began to um, determine how they want to work.
mm,
So that also made the C-suites wake up and
mm,
say, okay, we really need to train these people and do whatever we need to do to retain them.
mm.
You
So
know.
that will actually bring us to our first question, right? So how important is it really to invest in leadership development, right? Especially in millennials. I mean, I can't believe people are still talking about millennials because the oldest millennial is about 40 now.
That's right.
It's middle age.
Yes, that's right.
We're not talking about young people anymore,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So how important is investing in leadership development of millennials?
It's critical, it's crucial. I was just looking at this survey that took place. It's a DDI, it's a global leadership forecast. It's a report that happened in 2021, and they interviewed 360 CEOs, 2,000 HR executives,
Mm,
about 28,000 employees. and it's really a good report of what is happening today. And in 97, McKinsey came out and said about the war for talent. We need to really wake up and recruit the right talent. And now in 2021, the first sentence of the executive summary, the CEOs are worried about their own performance, the
Mm.
performance of the executive teams, but they're also worried about the leadership potential of the next gen talent.
Mm.
This is a reality today. This
Yeah.
is what the C suites are now keeping. That's what keeping them awake. So it's
Mm.
critical. It's important, but there is a shift. What the young people are looking for is not about the 20th century way of leadership,
Mm.
which was mission vision led.
Mm.
It was about be the best, be the best car manufacturer. But today it's about purpose.
Mm.
Who are we here to serve?
Mm.
And that's what the young people are much more conscious about. What is the value we are adding to our customers, to our stakeholders? Who are our stakeholders?
Mm.
And also, the ecological
Yep.
meltdown has
Mm.
made us all wake up about a purpose driven leadership style or
Mm.
leadership mindset.
Yep. Yep.
So that's where the investment has to be now.
Yep.
But it's critical.
And Alicia brought up a great point here. Gen Z is the upcoming generation that needs
Mm,
investment. And Gen Z is defined as 25 and below, the teenagers.
yes.
So, I mean, if we are still talking about developing millennials who are in,
Yes.
late 20s to late 30s, I think it's pretty critical because the first Gen Zs are already out in the market, right? The 24 and
Yep.
25
Yep.
year
Yep.
olds.
Yep.
So how do we speed up this process to reach the millennials and then also to the Gen Zs?
Yeah. Yeah. The millennials, as you said, the oldest millennial that is 40. So though they are the ones who are now in middle management, um, first level leaders, emerging leaders, and there has to be a lot of work, and there is still a lot of frustration because in the investment has been done and yet no investment to empower them to take lead, as it were. you
Mm,
know and this is where the dots need to be connected. They need
mm,
to be given more autonomy to
mm,
lead, and there is a lot more investment in training. I see it all the time,
mm,
training for emerging leaders and first level leaders. But and that's where it starts. That's where it needs to start. The millennial who's 40 years old,
mm,
who needs to set the culture, the right culture, if
mm.
if it's if it's in a purpose driven environment.
And yeah, if you're talking about culture, and we were speaking about this as well just now, right? So I think a lot of the training, the mindset is okay. There's a skills gap that we see, so let's send the people over for that course,
Mm,
and then they'll come back and apply it, right? Apply the skill
yeah,
set. But
yeah,
a lot of times, what happens is they go to the course, they learn an ideal system or ideal method,
yeah.
an ideal skill set, and when it comes back, the culture does not
No,
is not conducive, for
yes,
them to actually fully express it in that way.
yes,
Either because it doesn't fit into the culture, or the culture doesn't allow a person to try new things, or make mistakes along the way,
yeah, yeah.
right?
That that. That's right. That's right, and that's why you see I was sharing with you when I was a nurse, a first year nurse, a second year nurse, student nurse. Okay, I went into the classroom, but most of my competency was learned at work with
Mm.
somebody mentoring me, with a patient in front of me, if I had to give an injection to a patient. So that is what we say real life experience, and
Mm.
that needs to now become part and parcel of the way we develop people. And millennials are already saying we don't want this classroom kind of training, we want real life situational training,
Mm.
so we can learn hands on. Even if we go out, we come back, we have to apply it.
Yeah.
So this is where this is again, that's again the gap, and this is where HR and learning and development people all have to work together to come to that mindset, to come to that place, that the approach that we need to take to develop mindset and skill sets, especially skill sets and competencies, because
Mm.
it's really about those competencies for the future.
Mm.
Are they future ready
Yeah.
to be able to lead the kind of tech stuff
Yeah.
that's going to happen?
Correct.
Technologically, we're going to be having to work that way as well, the way that we are working now.
Correct.
So
And
yeah, yeah.
and I really agree with the mentorship. Maybe our audience can just drop in a comment if you have about mentorship. In your experience, does it occur in your company? Are you being mentored or are you mentoring someone? Is the culture in your company conducive for mentoring? Yeah, and I was just drop into the comment. What do you say? And Vimala, I was just saying, right, that this is really necessary, and I think it's quite urgent, right? Because the
Mm,
generations are coming up. If the millennials are already, very soon, most of them will be hitting middle age,
mm,
and the Gen Zs will be coming up, right? The new professionals, right?
yes.
So if this group has not been mentored, how are they going to mentor the next one, right? And um, and we were sharing just now, before the show, having been children's, a teacher and coaching children for the past 25 years. The mindset between the generation the gap is like just about 10 years, and the
Mm,
mindset shift is so different, right, between the millennials, the Gen Zs, and now the Gen Alphas.
mm,
And I was just saying, Vimala, it's true, right? Millennials want to be purposeful in their work and their life.
yes.
And so it's a purpose-driven they're attracted to purpose-driven organizations, purpose-driven
Yes.
work.
Yes.
But to the Gen Zs to the Gen Alphas who are raised and born with a gadget in their hand, I foresee it's not going to be a purpose-driven economy, purpose-driven work. It's going to be interest-driven work, because our gadgets are so tuned, and our kids
Mm,
are being conditioned that
mm,
if anything is not interesting to you, it's just one swipe away, done, gone,
yes.
right?
Yes.
You just keep
Yes.
swiping until something interests you.
Yes. Yes.
So and if we are not mentoring our millennials now, we
Mm,
we we, we know we are not coming to a middle ground. Like we were just saying this as well, there has to be some motion, some growth, right? So
yes.
if if we are not leading millennials forward, and what happens to them that come behind the millennials? Who's going to lead them forward with such a much more challenging mindset that they have grown up
Y-
with?
yes. It's very interesting that you bring the Gen Zs, in 10 years' time,
Mm,
they will be coming into workplace. They're already there. And their mindset or their needs for development is going to be it's really a kind of a futuristic scenario, isn't it? You know, um, the way people are going to be working is going to be technologically led. It's
mm,
going to be industry 4, although I don't understand everything about it. but I can see that the future work, the future of work, the future shape of work is something that's going to be coming from not from maybe, well, it's already started,
Mm.
but it's going to begin to accelerate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in that context, the millennials are the ones, because the millennials are also, tech technic technology led,
Mm.
but they're the ones who are going to have to look at um, this next generation and work towards developing them, mentoring them, and making sure, because at the end of the day, it's all about, when we think about work, it's really about organizations and businesses. And the purpose of organizations and businesses is to meet the bottom line.
Mm.
So everybody needs a salary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody needs to eat and
Yeah.
live and buy their gadgets.
Mm.
So the development has to, it will be, until you brought it up, I didn't think about it. Although I was thinking about, I'm a grandmother, because my fourth sisters and my elder sisters' children. Um, and I look at these little ones, and I'm now thinking that, my God, what is their demand going to be when they come to work?
Yeah.
So it's really the millennials, it's really that generation, this generation, that needs to start thinking about it.
Yeah. And Aswani brought up a really great point, right? Reverse mentoring is important. And I totally agree. I mean, I learn a lot from 20 somethings. And that keeps me relevant in the field, right? Otherwise, with the speed
Yes,
of advancement now, I'm out. I'm out. Even at
yes,
40 plus, I'm out.
very much. Reverse mentoring is something that hasn't caught up in Malaysia. It's happening in UK. I know a group of people who really have marketed reverse mentoring in a big way, and in Sweden as well. Those countries are very invested in reverse mentoring. In
Hmm.
Malaysia, it's not really happening, because we had this blind spot that millennials are entitled, they're lazy, they ask why, and that's why they Gen Y.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think also because we are Asians, like, well, we are your elders, don't question us,
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah,
Okay, let's
yeah.
take some questions. We have one from Michelle. Non-linear career pathway is difficult choice to make. How do you communicate with hiring managers to consider hiring someone with high potential but a non-conventional career path? This is a great question, right? Especially for people in the older generation. We always look at what was your university career and what was your corporate career, and your career
Yeah,
progression. So,
yeah.
how would you respond to this, Vimala?
Really, see, hiring is really a process, a function that needs to also, because I also hear very outdated way of hiring. Yeah. So hiring
Mm.
also needs to be, the hiring managers also need to be thinking in terms of what is it that we need for the future. Somebody with high potential, but not this conventional career path.
Mm.
But it is really about what is it that they can contribute. But
Mm.
that needs to be established. It's really about recruiting the right talent for the right role, but not
Mm.
necessarily that role has to fit this person's whatever qualifications they have.
Mm.
It is
Yeah.
about what is their potentiality
Yeah.
to bring this role, to enrich this role, to contribute to. So if they are saying, oh, I can help the company to grow because I did this as a pro bono work, why can't we hire them? Young
Yeah.
people are much multi-talented. They're multi-talented.
And actually, I got my big career break from a millennial. Very
Oh,
similar to
really?
situation to what Michelle is asking. Yahoo
Yeah.
Malaysia was hiring at the time, and the editor I think was only in his mid 30s, early to mid 30s.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And by that time I was about 40 already. So I went there and I had very little experience and zero experience in digital, in fact. But
Okay.
I and I went there with my portfolio, and he just said, okay, let's just put away your portfolio and let's just have
Yes.
coffee and let's have a
Yeah.
conversation,
Great.
right? So we had a conversation, and I guess he felt that, okay, I was the kind of person he was looking for. So I went in, and that was my big career break. I was older than him,
Mm.
uh, but he was willing to take a chance. Of course,
Yes.
uh, the chance paid off lah. I had to be competent also, right? As you said.
Yes.
So, yeah, I guess, and my friend, in fact, she she was telling us a story. She applied for a sales director post. She has never been a sales director before.
Mm.
So the recruiter was asking her, what makes you think you're qualified for this post? And she was bold
Mm.
enough to go and say, I'll be the best damn sales director you ever had.
Mm.
And that really just impressed them so much they decided to take a chance on her.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So I think there is really value in looking beyond just your past.
Qualifications.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's we need to move away from the rigidity of hiring. I
Hmm.
have to hire because they have to have this, they have to have that, da da da. Not really listening or
Yeah. Hmm.
engaging with the person in front of you, and
Yeah.
what is it that they could contribute, they could bring.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Matthew has a
Oh,
lengthy, well, comment come question.
okay.
Gen Z and the young millennials may have slightly non-conventional career aspirations and paths compared to Gen Xers. Okay.
Mm,
Young millennials are not so much about climbing to be CEO at the ends. They tend
okay.
to place importance on achieving something that's aligned to their personal values.
Yeah.
How do hiring managers need to approach this? Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah, there's so much about the way we need to hire. I think this is where the blind spots. I keep talking about these blind spots. We whether you are a, a baby boomer or a you know kind of a C-suite, we have these blind spots about the potentiality, and we
Hmm.
have very rigid way of, oh, this is what I need for this role.
Hmm.
So that rigidity has to be challenged. you
Hmm.
know those kind of biases need to be challenged as well. But it goes back to HR, it goes
Hmm.
back to HR practices and learning and development um, practices, because it's really about the talent acquisition and having a retention strategy to make sure that this person might not have all what I'm looking for, but
Hmm.
might contribute in a certain way to the success of the team
Yeah.
or a project.
And I think, would you say this really ultimately leads back to the leadership of the organization? Because
Yeah,
if the leadership expects a certain kind of, or behaves in a certain kind of way, right, it sets
yeah,
the culture for everything else, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
hiring procedures, the kind of person that comes into the company, the kind of person that lasts or doesn't last in the company,
Yes,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Again, I think I'm going to be upsetting. You see, HR, I'm going to be upsetting HR people, but there are wonderful HR leaders that I know. Again, HR is looking at hiring and firing, yeah, and towing the line, what I'm supposed to do. But if HR could, and there is a lot, people like Lawrence Yap talks about, how we need to, how HR needs to transform, because the role of HR now is to align to the company's mission and vision, to be able to be in that competitive environment and
Hmm.
retain your talent. So that role of HR is really a business role. but they are not recognized, not in
Mm.
Malaysia. They're not recognized as part of a C-suite
Mm.
position.
And I think you're so right. Because I think even as little as 15 years ago,
Yes.
nobody would be thinking of we are competing for talent,
Yeah, that's right.
right? And those days, people were still thinking of, well, we'll just throw a big enough, carrot out there, and somebody will pick it up,
Yes.
and people expect it to be the right person. I think that has long passed, with especially with websites like Glassdoor. I
Yes.
remember
Yes.
I remember feeling so amazed. What is this website where employees can rate employers?
Yeah,
Never heard of.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And also, you see, employers, bosses need to really walk the talk. When I coached in a Japanese company, the MD was Japanese, and the first level leaders who I was coaching, I coached the MD as well. They were Malaysians,
Mm,
and there was a huge culture. The culture in the context of the organizational culture, very Japanese
mm,
philosophy that didn't sit very well because the Malaysian leaders were leading a team of
mm,
people who are Malaysians and also Asians,
mm,
Indonesians and all of that. It was a manufacturing company,
mm,
and it was a very toxic environment. They hadn't met their productivity target,
mm,
but once they got into coaching and they began to see the changes they needed to make, including the MD,
mm,
the MD actually started having what do you call it, town hall sessions.
mm,
Although and everything had to be done because he spoke Japanese and very little English, but it had to be done through an interpreter. But the very fact that he stood in front of all the employees completely transformed,
mm.
because until then they hadn't seen the MD. They
Oh
only know
wow!
the MD. Well, they only know the MD who comes to work and sits in his office.
Right.
He might have gone onto the floor, but never to say, I am here, I want to hear from you.
Mm,
So the humanizing of leaders, C-suites, needs to happen.
mm.
That walk the talk. We talk about this walk the talk. We have to walk the talk,
Yeah.
where we
Um.
cannot, C-suites cannot sit anymore as I'm the boss, I know everything.
Yeah. So I've got a follow up question for that because well, with large corporations, probably they have the resources and the systems in place, and you know, but what about SMEs who might
Mm,
not have the resources, or the
yeah.
demands on the owner is so much more, because he's like an octopus instead of a specialized C-suite. How do you
Yeah.
see this issue of engaging with the employees, coaching and mentoring them? How can they make this leap and this transformation?
I'm thinking of my kindergarten business. It was a small business. I
Mm,
eventually had 125 children,
mm,
bigger buildings. I had teachers, and it was really empowering the teachers. I always said to the teachers, if not for you, I won't have this business.
mm,
But I need you, and my customers are the children and the parents. And I need you to be customer centric,
mm,
to teach the children and deliver so that the parents can come back and again. So it's really about empowering the people who are actually delivering
mm,
to the customers. It's really
mm,
empowering them. Even if they're going to make a mistake, let them make a mistake. My teachers made many a mistake,
mm,
but it's really so as a leader, you really need to step back For the first year, I go back to UK. For the first 2 years, I didn't go back to UK because, I was so invested in the business. But
Mm.
by the third year, I had enough confidence to let my teachers run the school.
Mm.
And I used to say to them, "Don't call me if there's a fire or the building has collapsed. Get the Bomba people first, and then call me." But I had trained them, I had empowered them to run the school,
Mm.
and that's what small businesses need to. Of course, when I set up the business, it was 24/7 for me. I invested so much of my time and energy.
Mm.
But that time and energy is about developing the people who are delivering the service,
Mm.
who are running the processes.
And that's a great point, right? Because I think a lot of small business owners, I think a lot of them, and because I am a small business owner myself, right, with my learning center,
Yes,
they really feel like we need to do it all. We need to know it all because
yes,
uh, we can't afford to. Let's say I have a staff force of 10. We can't afford to lose
yeah,
two people. That's 20% of the workforce, and nobody to pick
yeah,
it up,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
and I think this takes really a lot of courage to actually empower the staff,
yes,
and also it takes a lot of what I would say is maybe what's the word for it? Maybe sincerity to actually have
trust.
that level of connection and relationship with them,
Yes,
such that you
yes,
can let it go and they can trust you, right? Me
yes,
as a
yes,
boss to cooperate with me, and I think it's very true to have a purpose driven organization. My
yeah,
wife is really great at this, right? Because she's good at building relationships. She has a learning center herself, and because our learning center, our program is unique. We have very short hours, so we can't
mm,
afford to hire full-time staff. All our staff are part-timers, university
okay, okay,
students.
right,
But her retention of university student staff is really strong. They will stay for the entire
mm,
4 years that they're in university,
yes,
right? Because
because
they understand what they're doing here is meaningful, right?
that's
And they have a great
right,
relationship with the boss.
that's right, and that is what, you know th- if you can come across as a human being to relate to your employees, your leaders who are delivering, if you can trust them that without you, they can run this business, can survive, can run, can be competitive. If you could have that trust, and I think this is where SME leaders, they lack that self belief,
Mm,
and they of course need a lot more coaching and training and mentoring to have that mindset, to have that confidence, to say, okay, it's really about trusting
mm,
them to deliver, and my role is really being a mentor, a coach. And yeah, when you're a small business, running a small business, it
mm.
is you I know this because, like you, it was, 24/7 for me,
Yeah,
Saturday, Sunday, because you
yeah,
needed to make sure, that, because, you set up one kindergarten, and next year there's another five that sprung up
yeah.
around
That's
you,
right. That's right. That's right.
and you still have to be
That's right.
successful. Mm.
Okay, so what would you say would be the consequences for whether you're a SME or whether you're a corporation, multinational? What would you say were the
Mm.
consequences of having a culture of mentoring or not having a culture of mentoring?
Oh, must. A culture of mentoring is so crucial, you know, even for CEOs and C suites, so that they can start being transformative, you know, and mentoring really, again, as I said, it's really real life experience people are looking for and
Mm.
feedback. It's no good putting them in a classroom and
Mm.
3 days of this if they can't put it into practice, if they're not empowered. And that's where all the gaps are, I did I again, Kazana had a project for mentoring, coaching 300 fresh graduates, and I did it with some of my associates. And they were sent on work placement. And in work placement, we couldn't quite get to the managers or the head of this department. We couldn't get there, although that's what was needed, because
Mm.
that person. So we have now coached these young people. They're going into work environment for the first time, and there is nobody to mentor them, to handhold them.
Mm.
They were just left, because we coached them at workplace. And they said, oh, we're just, a few graduates said that, okay, my manager is very good, she's showing me this, he's kind of taking me through this. But it's such a disservice. We're
Mm.
doing such a disservice to people. I go back to my nursing day. If not a third year student nurse or a staff nurse showing me how to give an injection, what is the point?
Yeah. You
You
don't
know,
learn it from a book, right? You need to
exactly.
experience it.
Absolutely. And that's what people are asking for. Give me that experience, give me that responsibility.
Hmm.
And we need to
And
hear
this
that.
That's right. And this also reminds me of my own teaching experience, right? I was telling you that
Mm.
the program that I'm with is a self-study program, a self-learning
Yes.
program. So my role is more of being a coach and motivator and mentor, right?
Right.
I can't just give you the work and okay, you go and do it yourself. It's impossible,
Yeah.
right? They
That's
might be
right.
able to do it up to a certain level, but after that, when it starts to become tough, new challenges come. There's a
Yes.
lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, right? And fear of making mistakes, fear of failure. This is, I mean, uh, we are all humans, whether kids or adults. We all have the same feelings, right? When we're facing
Yeah. Yes.
new stuff.
Yeah.
So I realized over the years, the kids actually appreciate if I strike a balance between observing from afar
Yes.
and just coming in at the right point where you feel stuck and just give them a nudge, in the
Yeah.
right direction.
Yes. Yes.
Over delivering on the content, they just like, oh, can you just leave me alone so I can do this?
That's
Right?
right.
And really being too far back and not noticing them, and then that's where a
Yeah.
lot of anxiety comes in, right? Am I,
Yes.
am I doing
Yes.
the right thing?
Yeah.
What is happening here? I'm confused,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really the very basic principle of human to human connection, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
really need to take the effort to help, whether it's kids or whether it's the next generation of leaders or the new staff
Yeah.
in the company.
Yes. Yes. There's a program I put together for a client, and in it, I've said they must find a mentor. They will be in classroom, virtual classroom with me to go through the program, but they must find a mentor. Mentor can be from the workplace or somebody else.
Hmm.
And they must buy a big notebook to
Hmm.
write a journal,
Hmm.
because journaling is critical
Yeah.
for the development. So find a mentor. And we need to have this in all training modules. Go and find a mentor, because you're learning something, and then you're going back to workplace. But the workplace, of course, it has to be, in UK years ago, when all this work around developing Black and ethnic minority people into leadership, because that's where the gap was, we worked with the Bank of England, and we created mentors. That we
Hmm.
we we found those mentors in the in the organization. And we found the employees who came to our classroom, our training. But we worked with the mentors, we prepared them.
Hmm.
And when the trainee finished whatever they went through, they then went and partnered with a mentor.
Hmm.
So the developmental pathway for that person was already structured
Hmm.
towards progression, towards
Hmm.
promotion,
Hmm.
you know.
And I can imagine it's smooth because there's no huge jump that they need to make between the theory and the practical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the mentors were very invested in that
Hmm.
program. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are at the end of our show. Time has really flown by. So I haven't even covered the other four questions. So right. So maybe you can give us what are your three key takeaways for us tonight?
Okay, the three key takeaways is mentorship, mentoring.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's something coming very loud and clear, and having this kind of a pathway to have mentoring happening internally while people are being developed, whether they're millennials or Gen Zs. Um, so that's one, mentoring. And the second one is really this thing that you brought out, that in 10 years time we're going to have another generation who are not going to be purpose led, but
Interest
what is
driven.
it, interest
Interest.
driven. Yes, that's something to talk about. That is definitely something to talk about. So that's the second thing. Third one is I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But I really enjoy this as well. I mean, it's something that's very relevant, I think, for a lot of people, and I don't think it's said enough, I
Yes,
don't think there are enough platforms where everybody can have a conversation. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It's
Zebedee, right? Insightful mentorship empowerment culture, definitely. All right.
absolutely.
So thank you very much, Vimala, for joining us. I think we do have a lot more to talk about. So if you want Vimala to be back on the show, I would definitely want to invite Vimala. We can talk about further about this, maybe more about mentorship, right?
Yes.
Uh, so um, let me give you a little preview of the next show, and I think this is continuing from this conversation that we had as well. The next show that we're gonna have is uh, hold on, what am I doing? How come? So the next show we're gonna have, we're actually gonna talk about specifically about SMEs, right? Um, and I'm going to have a business coach with me, um,
Okay.
and okay, let me share this again. Oh no, I am not able to share. Why? Okay. So anyway, for some reason I can't share this. All right, but anyway, so next week I'm going to be speaking to a business coach called Iwan Zaini.
Okay.
So Iwan Zaini is a business consultant that helps local startups and SME entrepreneurs to spark, stabilize, and scale their businesses with her suite of business tools. So she has won a lot of awards before. A very young lady, but I really admire her because what she's doing now, she's actually helping micro to small scale businesses, right? Put in the structure, put in the systems, especially management and financial systems, and really help them to stabilize and scale up the companies. And you can't see the title, but I put it as World-Class Malaysian SMEs. Is it an impossible dream? I have a lot of faith in our local SMEs. I think the problem is a lot of local SMEs don't have faith in themselves, right? So and that's why I wanted to invite Iwan here, because I think what she does is really great. Right. Lalita, leadership development is important to shape and guide millennials toward the company's objective. Definitely. Right. Thank you for being here, Lalita. Matthew, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Alicia. And thank you, Jimin, for being here. So I will see you next week. Thank you and
I
good
want to
night.
say a big thank you, Chee-Seng, for inviting me. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. And thank you for all of the listeners and participants. Thank you.
Thank you.